I stood at the entrance of the grand ballroom, the heavy oak doors perfectly framing my solitary silhouette. A wave of condescending laughter rippled from my sister's snobbish new in-laws. They thought I was a pathetic, dateless spinster. They had no idea I was the one who signed their paychecks. My sister, Anna, and I had always been different. Where she was spun glass, delicate, and eager to reflect whatever light was shone upon her, I was forged iron. I don't say that to be unkind to her. It's simply the truth of our upbringing in a modest suburb of Chicago. Anna wanted the fairy tale, the grand romance, the sprawling estate, the effortless life of high society. I just wanted to build something of my own. When Anna met Bradley Sterling, she was utterly convinced she had found her prince. The Sterlings were old money, or at least they desperately played the part. They were the kind of people who casually dropped the names of their summer homes in Martha's Vineyard and judged your worth by the thread count of your blazer and the pedigree of your last name. From the moment I met Bradley, I felt a distinct chill. He had a perfectly symmetrical face, a smile that never quite reached his eyes, and a condescending drawl that grated on my nerves. But Anna was entirely swept away, blind to the subtle ways he diminished her, correcting her pronunciation of French wines or suggesting she change her wardrobe to something more refined. As the older sister, I tried to gently intervene. I asked her if she was truly happy, if she felt like she could be herself around him. But Anna only saw my concern as jealousy. "Not everyone wants to be married to their laptop like you, Chloe," she had snapped during one of our lunches. "Bradley is giving me a life I could never have dreamed of." She was right about one thing. I was married to my work. What Anna and the rest of my family didn't fully understand was the scale of that work. To them, I was just Chloe, who runs a little online consulting thing. I rarely corrected them. I lived in a comfortable but unassuming apartment, drove a sensible sedan, and dressed in tailored but unbranded suits. I preferred anonymity. The truth, however, was that my little consulting thing was actually Harrington & Co., a high-stakes corporate restructuring firm that handled acquisitions for some of the most powerful holding companies in the world. I didn't just have a seat at the table. I frequently owned the table. But to Patricia Sterling, Bradley's mother and the undisputed matriarch of their clan, I was nothing more than a tragic, working-class spinster. Patricia was a woman who wielded passive aggression like a finely sharpened scalpel. From the first engagement dinner, she made it her mission to establish the hierarchy. She would look at my simple silver jewelry and offer backhanded compliments. "Oh, Chloe, how charming. It's so refreshing to see someone who doesn't care about keeping up appearances." The wedding planning process was a nightmare. Patricia hijacked every decision, turning what should have been Anna's dream day into a royal coronation for the Sterling family. Anna was reduced to a quiet bystander in her own life. And I, as the maid of honor, was subjected to a constant barrage of pity and subtle insults. "Will you be bringing a +1, Chloe?" Patricia asked me one afternoon while we were trapped in a bridal boutique, watching Anna try on her 7th Vera Wang gown. Patricia didn't look up from her designer teacup as she spoke. "No, Mrs. Sterling," I replied evenly. "I'll be attending solo." Patricia sighed, a theatrical sound that drew the attention of the boutique assistants. "Oh, you poor dear. It must be so difficult, watching your younger sister achieve so much while you're still searching. Have you tried those dating apps?" "I have a nephew, Gregory. He's an actuary, a bit socially awkward, but he might be just your speed." "I'm quite content, thank you," I said, biting the inside of my cheek so hard I tasted copper. "Well," Patricia continued, finally looking at me with cold, calculating eyes, "just make sure you don't look too gloomy in the photographs. We want Anna to shine, and a sour face in the bridal party can really ruin the aesthetic." I endured it. I swallowed my pride, smiled tightly, and absorbed the venom, entirely for Anna's sake. I knew my sister was terrified of losing Bradley, terrified of not being enough for the Sterlings. If I caused a scene, Patricia would punish Anna for it. So, I played the part of the quiet, unremarkable sister. The tipping point, however, came during the week of the wedding. The main event was to be preceded by a wildly extravagant rehearsal dinner at the Wentworth Club, an ultra-exclusive, members-only establishment that the Sterlings boasted they had practically founded. The entire extended Sterling family was flying in, including the most revered figure in their lineage, Bradley's great-uncle, Alex Pendleton. Alex Pendleton was a legend in financial circles. He was a ruthless, brilliant titan of industry, a billionaire who rarely made public appearances and despised the frivolity of high society. The Sterlings practically worshipped him, though it was common knowledge within elite circles that Alex barely tolerated his nephew's family. They relied heavily on the trust funds and board positions he doled out. Having Alex at the wedding was Patricia's ultimate coup. It was the ultimate validation of their social standing. You must be on your absolute best behavior when Uncle Alex arrives. Patricia instructed everyone, including my parents, at the final dress fitting. She looked directly at me. He is a man of immense stature. Please, Chloe, try not to bore him with talk of your little internet business. He deals with real empires. I offered a polite, non-committal smile. I'll do my best to stay out of his way, Mrs. Sterling. Internally, I was fighting the urge to burst into uncontrollable laughter. Patricia had no idea. She had absolutely no clue that for the past 8 months, my firm, Harrington & Co., had been the lead strategist in a highly confidential, multi-billion-dollar merger for Alex Pendleton's flagship conglomerate. Alex and I had spent dozens of hours in closed-door negotiations. We had clashed, debated, and ultimately forged a deep, mutual respect. He was one of the few people who knew exactly how dangerous I could be in a boardroom. But I kept my mouth shut. Let them have their illusions. I packed my overnight bag, steamed my dark emerald slip dress, and prepared myself for an evening in the Lion's Den. The Wentworth Club was exactly as pretentious as I expected. It was a sprawling, ivy-covered stone mansion, surrounded by perfectly manicured golf courses and ancient, weeping willows. As I pulled my sensible sedan up to the valet, the attendant looked momentarily confused, as if expecting me to deliver a package rather than attend the evening's premiere event. I handed him the keys with a crisp tip and walked up the sweeping marble steps. The grand ballroom was breathtaking, I had to admit. Crystal chandeliers dripped from the vaulted ceiling, casting a warm, golden glow over tables adorned with towering arrangements of white orchids and hydrangeas. A string quartet played softly in the corner, and waiters in white tuxedos glided through the room carrying silver trays of champagne. The room was already packed with the Sterling family and their elite circle. I stood at the threshold for a moment, taking a deep breath, steeling myself for the inevitable. I smoothed down the emerald silk of my dress. It was simple, completely unadorned, but tailored flawlessly to my frame. I didn't need diamonds to feel like I belonged in a room. My confidence had been forged in fires much hotter than a country club dinner. As I took my first steps into the ballroom, the heavy oak doors closing behind me, I was immediately spotted. Patricia Sterling was holding court near the center of the room, surrounded by her sisters and a few wealthy friends. She caught sight of me, and a slow, cruel smirk spread across her face. She leaned in to whisper something to her sister, Sylvia, a woman draped in so much Chanel she looked like a walking billboard. Sylvia turned to look at me, and then she laughed. It wasn't a polite chuckle. It was a sharp, piercing sound that cut through the soft hum of the string quartet. Several other heads turned. Bradley, standing near the bar with his groomsmen, looked over and smirked, nudging his best man. I kept my head high, my posture perfectly straight, and walked deliberately toward the bar. I could hear the whispers as I passed. Is that the sister? Arriving alone, to a rehearsal dinner this size? How embarrassing. Patricia said she couldn't even find a date on the internet. I reached the bar and ordered a sparkling water with a twist of lime. Out of the corner of my eye, I saw Anna rushing toward me. She looked beautiful in a pale blue cocktail dress, but her eyes were frantic, her hands trembling. "Chloe, you're here," she breathed, grabbing my arm and pulling me slightly away from the bar. "Why are you so late? And why? Why did you walk in like that?" "Like what, Anna? Through the door?" I asked, keeping my voice calm. "You know what I mean. Everyone is looking. Patricia is." She swallowed hard, tears welling in her eyes. "She made a joke about you being the ghost of weddings past." "Please, Chloe, just blend in. Try to talk to Cousin Gregory. He's over by the ice sculpture. Please, just for me." My heart broke for her. She was so consumed by the need to please these awful people that she was willing to let them humiliate her own blood. Anna, I said softly, placing a hand on her cheek. I am not going to hide in the corner, and I am certainly not going to entertain Cousin Gregory to make Patricia comfortable. I am here for you, but I will not shrink myself. You don't understand, Anna hissed, her panic rising. Uncle Alex is arriving any minute. Everything has to be perfect. If you embarrass Bradley in front of his uncle— Anna, sweetie, a saccharine voice interrupted us. It was Patricia, materializing beside us with a glass of champagne in hand. There you are. We need to take some family photos before Alex gets here. She finally turned her gaze to me, looking me up and down with blatant distaste. Chloe, you made it. And alone, as promised. Good evening, Patricia. The room looks lovely, I said politely. Yes, well, it takes a certain eye, she said dismissively. Now, Chloe, when Uncle Alex arrives, he will be seated at the head table with us. I've arranged for you to sit at table 12, near the kitchen doors. I thought you'd be more comfortable there, away from the pressure of the high-profile guests. We wouldn't want you to feel out of place. Table 12, the literal back of the room. It was a calculated insult designed to put me in my place. I saw Anna flinch, but she said nothing. She just stared at the floor. Table 12 sounds perfectly fine, Patricia, I said, a genuine smile finally reaching my lips. I'm sure the service will be excellent. Patricia looked momentarily disappointed that I hadn't argued or cried, but she quickly recovered. Good. Now, run along, Anna. Bradley is waiting. Anna cast me one last apologetic look before allowing herself to be led away by her mother-in-law. I took my drink and began a slow stroll around the perimeter of the room. I could feel the eyes on me, the weight of their collective judgment. The spinster sister, the outcast, the poor relation. Suddenly, a ripple of hushed urgency swept through the ballroom. The string quartet abruptly stopped playing, shifting into a more formal, classical piece. The chatter died down to a reverent murmur. He's here, someone whispered near me. Alex is here. I stopped near a large pillar, half concealed in the shadows, and watched the spectacle unfold. The main doors opened, and a team of the club's highest-ranking managers bowed obsequiously as Alex Pendleton entered. He was a tall, imposing man in his late 70s with silver hair, a hawk-like nose, and piercing gray eyes that seemed to evaluate the net worth of everyone in the room in a single glance. He carried a silver-tipped cane, not out of necessity, but as an accessory of authority. The Sterling family practically scrambled over themselves to get to him. Patricia looked like she was going to hyperventilate with joy. Bradley pushed his way to the front, adopting an expression of earnest respect that I had never seen him wear. Uncle Alex! Welcome, Bradley declared, extending a hand. Alex paused, looking at Bradley's hand for a second, too long before giving it a brief, firm shake. Bradley, he said, his voice a deep, gravelly baritone that commanded absolute silence in the room. Patricia, we are so honored you could make it, Alex. Patricia gushed, practically curtsying. We have the best seat in the house for you. Let me introduce you to some of the new club board members. Save it, Patricia, Alex interrupted, leaning slightly on his cane. His eyes were scanning the room, completely ignoring the sycophants hovering around him. I'm not here for a networking event. The room was dead silent. Patricia looked stunned, a nervous flush creeping up her neck. Of course, Alex. We just wanted you to feel. Where is she? Alex demanded abruptly. Bradley blinked, confused. Where is who, Uncle Alex? Anna? She's right here. He grabbed Anna by the wrist and pulled her forward. Anna looked terrified. Alex barely glanced at my sister. Not the bride, Bradley. Though congratulations to you, my dear, he added with a curt nod to Anna. He turned his imposing gaze back to the crowd. I was told she would be here tonight. The only reason I agreed to fly out to this circus was because my people informed me she was on the guest list. Patricia forced a laugh, her panic now palpable. Alex, I'm not sure who you mean. Everyone of importance is right here in this circle. Alex's eyes swept past the wealthy socialites, past the ice sculptures, past the head table. The crowd naturally parted under his scrutiny, people stepping back to avoid his intense gaze. And then, his gray eyes locked onto me, standing quietly by the pillar near the back. A slow, genuine smile, a rare expression that most of the business world had never seen spread across the billionaire's face. "Ah," Alex said, his voice carrying clearly across the silent ballroom. "There she is." He bypassed Patricia, ignored Bradley's outstretched arm offering a drink, and began walking directly toward the back of the room. The crowd parted for him like the Red Sea, staring in shock as the most powerful man they knew made a beeline for the woman they had spent the last hour laughing at. I stepped out from the shadow of the pillar, holding my glass of sparkling water, and waited. The silence in the grand ballroom was absolute. It was the kind of heavy, suffocating quiet that precedes a violent storm. The clinking of glasses had ceased. The whispered gossip had evaporated. 200 of Chicago's most self-important socialites stood frozen, watching the impossible unfold. Alex Pendleton, a man known to be as unyielding as a glacier, was crossing the polished oak floor, his eyes locked entirely on me. Behind him, I could see Patricia Sterling's face contorting in real time. Her plastered-on smile cracked, replaced by a mask of sheer bewilderment. Bradley looked like a fish out of water, his mouth slightly ajar. Anna just looked terrified, clearly expecting me to have somehow offended the billionaire before the evening had even begun. Alex stopped exactly 2 feet in front of me. He planted his silver-tipped cane firmly on the floor. The entire room held its collective breath. I didn't break eye contact. He didn't offer a simple, obligatory handshake. Instead, this titan of industry, a man who made politicians wait in his lobby and who routinely dismantled corporations before breakfast, took my right hand in his. He stepped back, lowered his head, and executed a deep, formal bow. "Miss Harrington," Alex's gravelly voice boomed, echoing off the crystal chandeliers. "It is a profound relief to see a friendly, competent face in this sea of sycophants." A collective gasp rippled through the crowd. I heard a wine glass shatter somewhere near the front, likely dropped by Sylvia. "Alex," I replied, a warm, genuine smile breaking across my face. "It's a pleasure to see you outside the boardroom, though I must admit, I didn't expect you to brave a rehearsal dinner." "I braved it solely because my assistants assured me you were on the guest list, Chloe." He chuckled, releasing my hand but keeping his attention entirely focused on me. "That final restructuring clause you slipped into the Kessler merger yesterday? Absolute brilliance. You saved my firm $400 million with a single paragraph. My board wants to build a statue of you. You saved my firm $400 million with a single paragraph." The words hung in the air, heavy and irrefutable. I could practically hear the gears grinding to a halt in the minds of the Sterling family. Suddenly, a frantic clicking of heels broke the spell. Patricia, unable to contain her panic and confusion a second longer, practically sprinted across the floor, Bradley hot on her heels. "Uncle Alex!" Patricia gasped, her voice shrill and breathy. I think there has been some sort of monumental misunderstanding. This is Chloe. She's Anna's sister. She runs a little online thing. A blog or something of that sort." Alex slowly turned his head to look at Patricia. The warmth in his eyes vanished instantly, replaced by the cold, calculating glare that had made him a billionaire. "Patricia," Alex said, his tone dripping with disdain, "are you truly so blinded by your own snobbery that you don't even know who you are marrying your son into?" I don't understand," Bradley stammered, stepping forward, trying to look authoritative but failing miserably. "Uncle Alex, Chloe is just. She's not." "She is Chloe Harrington," Alex interrupted, his voice raising just enough to ensure every single person in the room heard him. "Founder and CEO of Harrington and Company. She is the lead strategist for my holding corporation. She is the woman currently masterminding the largest corporate acquisition in the Western Hemisphere. She possesses more business acumen in her little finger than the entirety of the Sterling family possesses in its collective, inherited lineage." The color drained entirely from Patricia's face. She looked as though she might physically collapse. Bradley took a step back, his eyes darting between me and his uncle as if we had both sprouted second heads. Harrington? And Company? Bradley choked out. The name was legendary in their circles. It was the firm that rich men whispered about, the firm you hired when you needed a miracle or an executioner. But her dress, Sylvia stammered from a few feet away, entirely unable to read the room. She didn't even bring a date. Alex let out a sharp, barking laugh. A date? Sylvia, when you are the one signing the paychecks for half the men in this room, you do not need to bring a prop to validate your existence. He turned back to me, shaking his head. I apologize for my family, Chloe. Their ignorance is a burden I have borne for decades. No apology necessary, Alex, I said smoothly, my voice calm and perfectly leveled. I looked directly at Patricia. I've always found that people see exactly what they want to see. Mrs. Sterling wanted a tragic spinster to feel superior to. I simply saw no reason to correct her. The social dynamics of the ballroom didn't just shift, they violently inverted. The very people who had been snickering at me 10 minutes prior were now staring at me with a mixture of raw awe and terrified respect. Well, enough of this standing around, Alex declared, waving his hand dismissively at Bradley and Patricia, treating them like bothersome staff. Chloe, I need to discuss the restructuring of the European assets with you. Where are we sitting? Patricia snapped out of her shock, a desperate, fawning smile rushing to her face. She saw an opportunity to salvage the disaster. Oh, Uncle Alex, of course. We have you seated at the head table, right in the center, next to Bradley and me. Chloe, we can have the staff bring a chair up for you immediately. No need, Patricia, I interrupted, my voice perfectly polite but laced with steel. You spent quite a bit of time arranging the seating chart to ensure everyone was where they belonged. I wouldn't dream of ruining your aesthetic. I turned to Alex. I am seated at table 12. I believe it's right by the kitchen doors. Alex's thick eyebrows shot up. He looked at the elaborate head table, adorned with massive floral arrangements and crystal, and then looked toward the back of the room where a small, unadorned table sat near the swinging service doors. The insult was blatant, undeniable, and deeply humiliating for the Sterlings to have exposed. Alex's face darkened. He looked at Bradley, who was currently sweating through his designer tuxedo. Table 12, Alex repeated softly. It sounded like a death sentence. You put the chief architect of my empire by the kitchen. Uncle Alex, please, it was just an oversight, Bradley pleaded, his voice cracking. Save it, Bradley, Alex snapped. He offered me his arm. Miss Harrington, if table 12 is good enough for you, it is certainly good enough for me. Lead the way. I took the billionaire's arm. Together, we walked away from the stunned Sterling family and made our way to the back of the room. As we sat down at the small table, the head waiter, who had practically ignored me earlier, materialized instantly, looking terrified, carrying a bottle of Alex's preferred vintage wine. The rest of the evening was a masterclass in social agony for Patricia and Bradley. Asterisk the head table. It sat virtually empty of importance. The guest of honor was at the back of the room. Asterisk. The orbit, table 12, became the new center of gravity. Every wealthy investor, every bank president, and every socialite who had previously sneered at me suddenly found an excuse to walk past the kitchen doors, hoping to catch Alex's eye or offer me a groveling compliment. Asterisk. The rejection. Alex ruthlessly ignored them all, engaging only with me, discussing market trends, and laughing loudly at my jokes. About an hour into the dinner, I saw Anna tentatively approaching our table. She looked pale and overwhelmed. Alex noticed her, and to my surprise, offered her a kind, grandfatherly smile. Ah, the bride, Alex said. Sit down, Anna. Have some wine. Anna sank into the chair next to me. She looked at Alex, then at me, her eyes wide. Chloe, why didn't you tell me? She whispered. Because this is your weekend, Anna, I said softly, reaching out to squeeze her hand. Not mine. You wanted to fit in with them. If I had announced who I was, Patricia would have turned my presence into a networking event. I wanted you to have the spotlight. She treated you horribly, Anna said, a tear finally spilling over her lashes. They all did, and you just took it. I have a very thick skin, I replied, glancing across the room at Patricia, who was currently staring at our table with an expression of sheer, unadulterated panic. And honestly, watching them trip over their own egos was wildly entertaining. Alex chuckled, raising his glass to me. Your sister is a predator in a tailored suit, Anna. You never need to worry about her. He leaned in slightly, his tone turning serious. But you, my dear, you are marrying into a family of vultures. Do not let them mistake your kindness for weakness. If Bradley or that mother of his ever steps out of line, you remind them exactly who your sister is. Anna looked back at the head table. She looked at Bradley, who was anxiously pacing, and then at Patricia, who was frantically whispering to Sylvia. For the first time since she had gotten engaged, the starry-eyed illusion was gone. I saw a flicker of the old Anna, the girl from Chicago who didn't take nonsense from anyone, ignite in her eyes. I think, Anna said slowly, wiping the tear from her cheek and sitting up a little straighter, that Patricia is going to find me much less agreeable from now on. I smiled, raising my glass of sparkling water to tap against Alex's wine glass. The rehearsal dinner concluded not with a grand speech from the groom's family, but with Alex Pendleton standing up from table 12, kissing my cheek, and walking out of the ballroom without saying a single word to Patricia or Bradley. The message was clear, and it was devastating. The power in the room didn't belong to the Sterling family name. It belonged to the woman they had tried to shove into the shadows. The morning of the wedding dawned with heavy, gray clouds rolling off Lake Michigan, mirroring the suffocating atmosphere inside the sprawling bridal suite of the Wentworth Club. The social hierarchy had not just shifted overnight, it had completely capsized. When I arrived at the suite holding 2 cups of black coffee, the room fell dead silent. The makeup artists paused with their brushes hovering in midair. The bridesmaids' women who had spent the last 6 months pointedly excluding me from group chats suddenly looked at me as if I held the nuclear launch codes. One of them, a notoriously gossipy heiress named Jessica, practically tripped over a steamer trying to offer me her velvet armchair. Then came Patricia Sterling. If the rehearsal dinner was a masterclass in social agony, the morning of the wedding was a masterclass in shameless sycophancy. Patricia cornered me near the balcony doors, her face stretched into a smile so tight it looked painful. Gone was the condescending matriarch. In her place was a desperate, fawning opportunist trying to salvage her family's access to billionaire capital. Chloe, darling, Patricia cooed, her voice practically dripping with artificial honey. I barely slept a wink last night. I was just so mortified by how our staff handled your seating arrangements. It was utterly unacceptable. It was table 12, Patricia, I replied, taking a slow sip of my coffee. Right by the kitchen. I believe you finalized the seating chart yourself. She waved her hand dismissively, a nervous laugh escaping her throat. A clerical error, truly. I've already spoken to Penelope, the wedding planner. We are making some immediate adjustments for the ceremony and reception. She pulled out an embossed schedule and began listing her corrections like a desperate hostage negotiator. Asterisk. The ceremony. I was to be moved from the standard bridal party lineup to a VIP velvet-roped section in the front row, directly across from Alex Pendleton. Asterisk. The reception. The head table had been reconfigured. Bradley and Anna would sit in the center, flanked immediately by Alex on one side and me on the other. Asterisk. The toast, Patricia requested, almost begging that I give the prime toast before dinner, and gently suggested I mention my close, familial working relationship with Uncle Alex. I appreciate the offer, Patricia, I said, my voice dangerously calm, but I will stand with the bridesmaids as Anna requested. I am here to support my sister, not to serve as a corporate mascot for the Sterling family's social standing. Before Patricia could pivot to a new bargaining tactic, the heavy oak doors of the bridal suite flew open. In walked Bradley. It was highly unorthodox for the groom to storm into the bridal suite 2 hours before the ceremony, but Bradley looked frantic. His eyes were bloodshot, his tuxedo bow tie hanging undone around his neck. He didn't even look at Anna, who was sitting in front of the vanity mirror in her silk robe, half finished with her hair. He marched straight toward me. Chloe, Bradley said, breathing heavily. I need to talk to you. Now. Bradley, What on earth are you doing in here? Anna asked, her voice trembling slightly. It's bad luck to see the bride. Not now, Anna, Bradley snapped, waving her off without a glance. He lowered his voice, leaning in toward me. Uncle Alex's legal team just sent an email to my father. They are restructuring the family trust payouts. Effective immediately. He's freezing my board appointment. I raised an eyebrow. Alex is a prudent businessman. If he feels the capital is being mismanaged, he acts. You have to fix this, Bradley demanded, his veneer of aristocratic polish completely shattering. You're his lead strategist. You have his ear. Tell him yesterday was a misunderstanding. Tell him we respect you. If I don't get that board seat, my father will cut off my allowance, and Anna and I won't be able to afford the mortgage on the Gold Coast estate. I stared at him, letting the silence stretch until it became unbearable. Let me understand this, Bradley. It is 2 hours before you walk down the aisle, and you are in here demanding that I leverage my professional integrity to secure your allowance? You owe it to us, Patricia interjected, her panic overriding her attempted charm. You embarrassed us in front of the entire club last night. You owe it to your sister's future. My sister's future? I asked softly, turning my gaze to Anna. Anna was staring at Bradley in the vanity mirror. The reflection captured everything, her pale face, her wide eyes, and the absolute stranger standing behind her. The fairy tale was dead. The man she thought was a prince was throwing a tantrum over his trust fund, completely ignoring his bride on their wedding day, begging the very woman he had mocked to save his bank account. Anna slowly stood up. She walked over to the garment bag hanging in the corner, unzipped it, and stared at the custom Vera Wang gown. Then, she turned to face her fiancé. Bradley, Anna said, her voice eerily steady. Do you love me? Bradley blinked, caught entirely off guard by the question. What? Anna, of course I do. But this is a crisis. Do you love me? She repeated, stepping closer. Or did you just love the idea of a quiet, pliable girl from the suburbs who would look pretty in photographs and never challenge your mother? Anna, you're being hysterical, Patricia scoffed, stepping forward. It's just wedding day jitters. You are incredibly lucky to be marrying into this family. Especially now that we know your sister is actually useful. The word hung in the air. Useful. That was it. That was the spark that finally ignited the iron in my sister's blood. Anna reached up to her ear and unclasped the antique diamond drop earrings Patricia had generously loaned her for the day. She dropped them onto a silver tray on the vanity. They landed with a sharp, final clatter. Next came the engagement ring, a massive, gaudy 3-carat stone that Bradley had picked out himself. She set it gently next to the earrings. Anna, what are you doing? Bradley asked, his voice pitching up in genuine panic. I'm going home, Anna said. She didn't yell. She didn't cry. She just sounded profoundly tired, and yet lighter than she had been in months. I am not going to spend the rest of my life apologizing for who I am, or who my family is, to people who measure human worth by stock portfolios. You can't do this, Patricia shrieked, her face turning a mottled red. There are 200 guests down there. The governor is in the front row. You will ruin us. I think you've done a perfectly fine job of ruining yourselves, Mrs. Sterling, I said, stepping forward to stand shoulder to shoulder with my sister. Anna turned to me, a small, genuine smile breaking through the tension. Can we take your car? I don't think the valet will bring Bradley's limousine around for me. My sensible sedan is parked right out front, I smiled back. We didn't look back as we walked out of the bridal suite. We left Patricia hyperventilating into a silk handkerchief and Bradley staring blankly at the diamond ring on the vanity. We walked down the grand marble staircase of the Wentworth Club together, past the towering floral arrangements and out the heavy oak doors, leaving the whispers and the suffocating snobbery behind us. The Sterlings are still chasing Alex Pendleton's shadow, but he swiftly cut their trust funds in half the following quarter. As for Anna, she didn't need a fairy tale castle. She needed to remember she was forged from iron too. Today, she runs her own thriving boutique PR firm in Chicago. We still laugh about that rehearsal dinner the night the pathetic spinster sister accidentally dismantled a dynasty without spilling a drop of sparkling water.